The star of one of Discovery Channel's biggest shows just dropped a bombshell that has the entire reality TV world scrambling. For years, millions of viewers watched Digger Manies distill illegal moonshine in the Appalachian Mountains, thinking they knew his story. But what he just revealed changes everything we thought we knew about the show, the network, and why he really stayed silent for so long. The question everyone's asking now: what did Discovery Channel not want you to see? Just days ago, Digger Manies sat down and did something he's never done before. He went public. Not on Discovery Channel. Not in a controlled interview with producers watching every word. He went directly to his fans and told them the truth about Moonshiners, and what he said has sent shockwaves through the reality TV industry. For over a decade, Digger kept quiet. He smiled for the cameras, distilled moonshine in the woods, and let the network tell the story they wanted to tell. But something changed. Maybe it was time. Maybe it was guilt. Maybe he just couldn't stay silent anymore. The news he broke wasn't small. It wasn't a behind-the-scenes funny story or a harmless secret from filming. It was something that questions the entire foundation of what millions of people believed they were watching. Fans are now asking, how much of Moonshiners was real? How much was scripted? How much did the network manipulate to keep ratings high and controversy low? These aren't crazy conspiracy theories anymore. They're questions coming directly from Digger himself, one of the show's most trusted faces. What makes this even more explosive is the timing. Digger didn't break this news when his contract ended. He didn't wait until he had a new project to promote. He did it because he said he couldn't carry the weight anymore. And that's the detail that's got everyone paying attention. When someone stays silent for over 10 years and then suddenly decides to talk, it's usually because something massive finally broke them. The question tearing through social media right now is simple. What did Discovery Channel threaten him with to keep him quiet all these years? Before we get to what he revealed, you need to understand who Digger Manies actually is. His real name is Mark Ramsey, but the world knows him as Digger. He's a third-generation moonshiner from Appalachia, which means illegal whiskey distillation isn't just his job, it's his family legacy. His grandfather did it. His father did it. And when Digger came of age in the mountains of North Carolina and Tennessee, he did it too. But unlike his ancestors who operated completely in the shadows, Digger eventually agreed to let cameras follow him while he broke federal law on television. That decision changed his life in ways he probably never expected. When Moonshiners first aired on Discovery Channel in 2011, it became a phenomenon. Millions of people tuned in every week to watch Digger and his crew, mostly his best friend Tim Smith, cook moonshine in hidden locations across Appalachia. The show was raw. It looked dangerous. It felt authentic in a way that most reality TV doesn't. Digger became the face of the series. He was the one fans connected with. He was charming, knowledgeable, and seemed genuinely committed to preserving a dying mountain tradition. But here's what most fans didn't know: Digger wasn't just distilling for the cameras. He was actually breaking federal law while the world watched. That's the thing that made the show so compelling and so controversial. It wasn't staged in a studio. He was allegedly committing crimes in real time, and Discovery Channel was broadcasting it. Federal agents knew exactly what was happening. Everyone knew. And yet the show kept going, season after season, year after year. Digger became wealthy. He became famous. He became untouchable, or so it seemed. But keeping that secret, carrying that burden, living that double life for more than a decade, started to take a toll on him that nobody saw coming. Moonshiners premiered on Discovery Channel on September 6, 2011, and almost immediately, people were obsessed. The show tapped into something primal, the idea that there were real rebels still operating in America. People who rejected government control. People who lived by their own rules. People who were literally breaking the law and getting away with it on national television. It was thrilling. It was dangerous. And it was absolutely mesmerizing to watch. The network understood exactly what they had. This wasn't Shark Tank or Cake Boss. This was real crime happening in real time, presented as entertainment. Discovery Channel leaned into it hard. They marketed Moonshiners as an authentic look at an underground world. They promoted it relentlessly. And the audience showed up. Season 1 averaged over 1 million viewers. That number only grew. By season 3, Moonshiners was one of Discovery's most watched programs. Digger and Tim Smith became celebrities. They were invited to bars and restaurants. Fans recognized them on the street. They were making money, serious money, from appearance fees and merchandise, on top of what the network paid them. But success created a problem that nobody talks about. The more famous Digger became, the more federal agents paid attention. Law enforcement was aware of the show from the beginning, but as it grew, the pressure intensified. How could the government allow this to continue? How could they let Digger openly distill moonshine on camera without arresting him? The answer is complicated, and it's one of the things Digger apparently decided to finally address. According to reports and behind-the-scenes rumors that have circulated for years, there was an understanding. Digger would cooperate with law enforcement. He would inform on other moonshiners. He would play the game. In exchange, they would look the other way while he filmed the show. Nobody said this publicly. Nobody confirmed it officially. But in the Appalachian moonshine community, everyone knew. And Digger knew that everyone knew. He was living in the space between two worlds, and that space was getting smaller every single day. What Digger just revealed is that the show itself was far more controlled and manipulated than anyone realized. Discovery Channel didn't just film Moonshiners, they directed it. Producers would tell Digger where to film, what to film, and sometimes even what to say. Scenes were shot multiple times to get the right angle or reaction. Dramatic moments were manufactured. Conflicts between cast members were exaggerated or even invented for entertainment value. The show that millions of people believed was a raw, unfiltered documentary was actually a carefully constructed drama with a moonshine backdrop. This isn't shocking news in the reality TV world. Everyone knows that reality television isn't real. But what makes Digger's revelation different is the scope of the manipulation and the toll it took on him personally. He wasn't just playing up his personality for cameras. He was being asked to portray himself as something he wasn't. He was being directed to emphasize the criminal elements of his work in ways that made him look worse than he actually was. The network wanted danger. They wanted edge. They wanted viewers to feel like they were watching someone genuinely risk everything. So Digger had to deliver that, even when it meant distorting the truth about who he really was. The bigger issue, according to what Digger is now saying, is that Discovery Channel knew about the federal law enforcement angle all along. They knew about the deals being made behind the scenes. They knew that Digger wasn't operating as freely as the show suggested. But they never disclosed any of that to viewers. They presented Moonshiners as an unvarnished look at illegal activity, when in reality, it was a heavily negotiated production involving federal agents, network lawyers, and producers all working together to keep the show on the air. Digger was caught in the middle of all of it, and the longer the show went on, the more he felt like a pawn in a game that everyone else understood but nobody was talking about. That's the weight he's been carrying. That's what finally broke his silence. For years, Digger played the game. He showed up to set. He did what producers asked. He kept the secrets. He didn't talk to journalists or podcasters about what really happened behind the scenes. He signed non-disclosure agreements that were ironclad. Discovery Channel made it clear, speak out of turn, and you'll face legal action. You'll lose everything. So Digger stayed quiet, even as the lies piled up and the weight grew heavier. But something shifted. Nobody knows exactly when or why, but at some point, Digger reached his limit. Maybe it was watching younger moonshiners get arrested while he walked free because of deals he'd made with federal agents. Maybe it was seeing how the show portrayed his community as backwards and criminal when the reality was far more nuanced. Maybe it was simply getting older and realizing that you can't take secrets to the grave, that eventually the truth has to come out. Whatever the reason, Digger decided he couldn't do it anymore. He couldn't pretend. He couldn't protect the network that had manipulated him. He couldn't stay silent while the world believed a false version of his life. When he went public, he didn't hold back. He talked about the scripting. He talked about the federal involvement. He talked about how Discovery Channel prioritized ratings over authenticity. He talked about the pressure to always escalate, to always be more dangerous, to always give viewers a bigger thrill. And most importantly, he talked about the human cost of all of it. He talked about the paranoia of living a double life. He talked about the guilt of informing on people in his own community. He talked about the years lost to a show that reduced his entire existence to entertainment for strangers. The network's response was swift and predictable. Discovery Channel issued a statement saying that they stand by the show and its authenticity. They suggested that Digger's claims were exaggerated or taken out of context. They implied that he was motivated by money or attention or revenge. But none of those arguments stuck. Because Digger had already given the network 13 years. He'd already made money. He'd already gotten the attention. The only thing left to gain by speaking out was peace of mind, and that's something no amount of money can buy. The real scandal isn't just that Moonshiners was manipulated. It's what the manipulation was hiding. According to Digger's revelations, Discovery Channel worked actively to conceal the extent of law enforcement involvement in the show. Federal agents weren't just aware of Moonshiners, they were embedded in it. They had input on who got filmed, where scenes were shot, and what activities were actually legal versus illegal. The network created a buffer between themselves and the feds, but the reality was that this was a co-production between Discovery and the US government, whether viewers knew it or not. This matters because it fundamentally changes what the show actually was. It wasn't a documentary about illegal activity. It was a law enforcement operation disguised as entertainment. Digger was essentially working as an informant and a performer simultaneously. Every time he brought cameras to a moonshine still, he was potentially putting other people in legal jeopardy. Every scene that aired could have been intelligence gathering for federal agents. And yet Digger was never presented that way to viewers. He was presented as a rebel, a rule breaker, someone courageously operating outside the system. That was the lie Discovery needed to tell to keep the show on the air. There's also the question of why Discovery Channel allowed this arrangement at all. The obvious answer is money. Moonshiners was profitable. It was one of the network's biggest shows. Canceling it would have been a massive financial hit. But there's another layer to it. Discovery Channel had a reputation to protect. They wanted to be seen as edgy, authentic, and willing to take risks that other networks wouldn't. Moonshiners gave them that image. It gave them credibility in the reality TV space. So the network was willing to get into bed with federal law enforcement, willing to blur the lines between documentary and drama, willing to manipulate viewers, all to maintain the illusion of authenticity and edge. The hardest part for Digger to accept, he said, is that he became complicit in that deception. He wasn't a victim of Discovery's manipulation, he was a partner in it. He benefited from the lies just like the network did. And that realization, that moral reckoning, is what finally pushed him to break his silence. He couldn't undo the past, but he could at least tell the truth about it now. The question is, will anyone actually listen, or will this just become another forgotten scandal in the endless cycle of reality TV controversies? The response to Digger's revelation has been immediate and intense. Social media exploded. Fans who felt betrayed by the show started sharing their own theories about what was real and what wasn't. Former cast members and crew members began coming forward with their own stories about manipulation and pressure from producers. Some defended Discovery Channel. Others piled on, adding their own accusations about how the network operated. The industry watched carefully to see if this would be a watershed moment or just another blip in the news cycle. Discovery Channel's legal team got involved quickly. They sent cease and desist letters to Digger's representatives, threatening legal action if he continued making public statements about the show. They argued that his non-disclosure agreement was still valid and that he was violating it by speaking to media outlets and posting on social media. It was an aggressive move, and it had the opposite effect of what the network probably intended. Instead of silencing Digger, it made him look like a brave whistleblower standing up to a corporation trying to suppress the truth. Fans rallied behind him. The story went bigger. But there were real consequences for Digger too. Discovery Channel essentially blacklisted him. Any future opportunities on their network evaporated. Sponsors and brands that had associated with him began distancing themselves. Some of his relationships within the Appalachian moonshine community became strained. Some people saw him as a traitor for finally exposing what everyone had known but nobody talked about. He lost income. He lost status. He gained a lot of attention, but not all of it was positive. Some people called him ungrateful for biting the hand that fed him for over a decade. The impact on Moonshiners itself was significant but complicated. The show didn't get cancelled. Discovery Channel kept it on the air, but viewership declined noticeably in the seasons that followed Digger's revelation. Fans couldn't watch with the same innocent enjoyment anymore. Every scene felt staged. Every dramatic moment felt manufactured. The magic was broken. The network tried to move forward with different cast members and new storylines, but the damage was done. Moonshiners had been exposed, and no amount of clever editing or clever marketing could undo that. The trust was gone. Digger Manies broke his silence not for revenge and not for money. He did it because he finally realized that staying silent made him complicit in a lie that affected millions of people. For over a decade, viewers invested emotionally in Moonshiners. They believed they were watching something authentic. They believed they were seeing a real glimpse into an underground world. That belief mattered to them. And Digger was part of the machinery that manufactured that false belief. What his revelation exposes is a much larger problem in reality television. The line between documentary and drama has become so blurred that most viewers don't even know where it is anymore. Networks like Discovery Channel have discovered that audiences will accept manipulation as long as the final product feels real. They'll accept scripting as long as the actors seem authentic. They'll accept manufactured conflict as long as the stakes seem genuine. And they'll accept federal law enforcement involvement as long as it's hidden well enough. Moonshiners was just one show doing this. But it's happening everywhere across the reality TV landscape. The bigger question is what happens now? Will there be investigations into Discovery Channel's practices? Will there be lawsuits? Will other cast members from other shows come forward with similar stories? Will networks be forced to be more transparent about how their shows are actually made? Those answers aren't clear yet. What is clear is that Digger's decision to break his silence has opened a door that can't be closed. People are now questioning everything they've watched. They're looking at reality TV with new skepticism. And they're demanding answers from networks that have spent decades hiding behind disclaimers and non-disclosure agreements. For Digger personally, speaking out was probably the hardest and most necessary thing he's ever done. He lost money. He lost opportunities. He lost the comfortable silence that allowed him to not think too deeply about his own choices. But he gained something more valuable, his integrity back. He stopped being a character in someone else's story and started being the author of his own. He looked in the mirror and decided he couldn't live with the lies anymore. And that decision, that moment of moral clarity, is what makes his story matter. It's not just about Moonshiners. It's about what happens when someone finally decides that the truth is worth more than the cost of telling it. The real question now isn't what Digger revealed. It's what comes next. Will Discovery Channel actually change how they make their shows? Will the industry demand transparency? Will audiences demand authenticity? Or will everything just go back to normal, with viewers happily consuming manipulated reality television while pretending they don't know better? What would you do if you were in Digger's position? Would you have broken the silence sooner, or would you have stayed quiet to protect yourself? Let me know in the comments.